It was supposed to be a beautiful, beautiful week in the start of the NFL season after the Thursday night encounter in Kansas City between the Chiefs and the Ravens, and then Friday night in Brazil, the Eagles going up against the Green Bay Packers. We were all looking forward to a beautiful NFL season. And then the police encountered a black man that happens to be an NFL player. And everything went out the damn window. Go figure. Stephen A. Smith Show in the house. Let's get it. What's up, everybody? Welcome to the latest edition of the Stephen A. Smith Show, coming at you as I love to do over the digital airwaves of YouTube and iHeartRadio at least 3 times a week. Thank you again for supporting the show. Before I go any further, let me remind you that I always pay a debt of gratitude to my audience, my viewers, listeners, etc. over YouTube and iHeartRadio, because I've now eclipsed over 782,000 subscribers on YouTube and obviously over 2.5 million downloads over the last couple of months over iHeartRadio. Can't thank y'all for the love and support enough. Keep it coming, and I'm going to keep on coming. Let me get right to the news of the day, because obviously it's very, very important to point this out. And I was looking forward to talking about some big-time football that was being played in the opening week of the NFL season. Unfortunately, however, the biggest headline of week 1 in the NFL was not from the football field. Tyreek Hill and other Miami Dolphin players were detained by Miami-Dade Police Department officers before Sunday's game against the Jacksonville Jaguars. Tyreek Hill said he was pulled over for allegedly speeding while driving to Hard Rock Stadium. He was ultimately placed in handcuffs after a, quote, verbal altercation, end quote, occurred, sources told ESPN's Jeff Darlington. Hill was cited for reckless driving. He was released after several minutes, but the incident was filmed by nearby fans and quickly went viral on social media. Hill said he didn't know why the situation escalated the way it did. At one point during the incident, video showed Hill lying on the ground, handcuffed, with 4 officers surrounding him. Hill had this to say about what could have been. Here's the quote. "What if I wasn't Tyreek Hill? Worst case scenario, you know? It's hard. I don't want to bring race into it, but sometimes it gets kind of iffy when you do. I just wanted to make sure I was doing what my uncle always told me to do whenever you're in a situation like that. Put your hands on the steering wheel and just listen. Everybody has bad apples in every situation, but I want to be able to use this platform to figure out a way to flip this and make it a positive." Calais Campbell, his teammate, was among the Miami Dolphins teammates who approached officers after seeing this unfolding, and Campbell was also briefly detained. He appeared on First Take on ESPN this morning, where I asked him this. When you say that they were being, using excessive force, I'd like you to be specific with our audience exactly what you saw that makes you say that.
They were trying to yank him down to the ground, and so like I saw him, kick him and pull him down, pulling the cuffs, shoulders looked like they're messing up. They kind of got him down. I felt like the one officer was pushing on his head, and just was like completely unnecessary. And so, I got out, I had my hands up like this, approaching, and I'm just telling him like, hey, I'm a friend of his. I stood there for about 5 more minutes, and told him I'll stand where you want me to stand. Wherever you tell me how far I gotta back up, I'll back up, but I'm not leaving the scene. And I think I responded to him like, you can tow my car. I don't feel like I'm blocking traffic. And he's like, that's it, you're under arrest. Puts me in handcuffs, and, Tyreek's there, obviously feeling distressed. And, Jonnu Smith was there as well on the other side in front of him, and I was behind him. And he's like telling Jonnu, don't leave me, man, don't leave me, and he's, talking to me. And it's just like, he's in an extreme situation that I don't think he should have been in. It was completely unnecessary. And so, like, we're here for you. We got your back. If they take us to jail, they take us to jail, but we're going to do this together.
Now, Hill did mention his gratitude for those that were by his side during all of this. Here's what he had to say about that. Quote, "I'm just glad that my teammates were there to support me in my situation because I felt alone. When they showed up, it made me realize that we have a effing good team this year. For them to put their life on the line, it was amazing to see," end quote. Today, Stedman Stahl, the president of the South Florida Police Benevolent Association, had this to say in a statement, quote, "Before the Dolphins game yesterday, an incident occurred where Tyreek Hill was placed in handcuffs before being released. First, to be clear, at no time was he ever under arrest. He was briefly detained for officer safety after driving in a manner in which he was putting himself and others in great danger. Upon being stopped, Mr. Hill was not immediately cooperative with the officers on the scene, who, pursuant to policy and for their immediate safety, placed Mr. Hill in handcuffs. Mr. Hill, still uncooperative, refused to sit on the ground and was therefore redirected to the ground. Once the situation was sorted out, within a few minutes, Mr. Hill was issued 2 traffic citations and was free to leave," end quote. After all of that, before the game, Hill hit the field and balled out, catching 9 passes for the 130 yards, including an 80-yard touchdown, by the way. He celebrated the score by doing a mock handcuff celebration with teammate Jalen Waddle. Tyreek Hill's agent, Drew Rosenhaus, will join me a little bit later on in the show. Let me say this. I'm not one of these people that laments the state of affairs as it pertains to law enforcement officials and black men by articulating the words police brutality. Because I always say brutality on the part of some police officers, because I don't want to castigate and stigmatize an entire collection of police officers across the United States of America. There are black police officers, there are white police officers, there are Hispanic police officers, and the like, most of whom do exactly what they've taken an oath to do, to protect and serve. But there's rogues in every industry, and there's rogues everywhere. And we got to weed the rogues out. And I think that when you hear about an investigation is ongoing, I want to learn about this officer who was engaging in excessive force. Because that's really what the story is here. The story isn't about Tyreek Hill getting pulled over. The story isn't about Tyreek Hill even being in handcuffs. As unfortunate as that was, let's keep in mind that Scottie Scheffler, an elite golfer, one of the top golfers in the world, if not number 1 in the world, when he was arrested in Kentucky, all right, months ago, in May, if I remember correctly, when that happened, he was placed in handcuffs and booked. So let's understand, this is not a story about the handcuffs. This is not a story about Tyreek Hill being detained. It's how he was detained. That's the story. Why do you need him face down on the ground? Y'all know how hot it was in Florida yesterday? You know how hot that ground must have been? You put his body and his face on the pavement. You feel a need for 3, 4 different officers to surround him while that's happening. Once you put him in cuffs behind his back, you stand him up. And then afterwards, some other officer comes down a minute later or so and forcibly sits him down. Why? Why was that necessary? See, what people are not realizing, what law enforcement needs to realize is that, remember when the protest was going on? Remember how people had lost it? And there were riots throughout the streets of America. There were protests throughout the streets of America. There was some movement about defund the police, which, by the way, I never agreed with defunding the police. But that's beside the point at this particular moment in time. You know what? You remember that when that happened? You know what was irking people's nerves? Stuff like this. It wasn't just folks getting shot and killed who happened to be unarmed. It was abusive behavior on the part of some law enforcement officials. A level of physicality exacted towards people who happened to be black when we weren't seeing that occur with others. The dehumanization of black men in particular is what rakes our last nerves. And we bring that up because it wasn't necessary yesterday. You have him in cuffs. By the time you got him out the car, there's no doubt you knew who he was. Why would you do that? Furthermore, because you had him cuffed behind his back, you as a police officer were no longer in danger. Why did you have to do that? Where was the threat? Isn't it true that it really wasn't a threat at that particular moment in time? Which is why the Benevolent Association is leaning on he was uncooperative. Okay, that explains why you put him in cuffs. Why'd you forcibly sit him down? What'd you do that for? Why prior to that, when you had 4 different police officers surrounding him, why did you have him on that hot-ass pavement with his face down? Why? And the fact that you didn't arrest him makes it even worse, because that means it truly was just a traffic violation, as opposed to something more like you tried to make it out to be. That's why you got the officer on desk duty. Because clearly there was excessive behavior going on. These kind of things are the kind of things that lead to folks, particularly black folks, looking at you and saying, damn. And all of a sudden castigating everybody with a broad brush. That's where you hear words like police brutality coming into play instead of hearing brutality on the part of a rogue police officer. Because not only did it happen, but there were other officers who allowed it to happen. And then on top of it all, you got the Benevolent Association trying to give excuses. It's unacceptable. It really is. But that's just my perspective. I've got another that I want to bring to you right now. Okay, everybody, you know what time it is. It's time for Stephen A. Sports Picks. Everybody knows that watching and following sports is my entire life, practically. And now that the NFL season has begun, I have to be right there in the middle of all that action. But how do I do that exactly? There's only one way. I use Prize Picks. That's how. You see, Prize Picks is the largest fantasy sports platform in all the land with over 3 million members. You just choose 2 or more players and then pick more or less on their projected stats for the game. And get this, sign up with code SAS and Prize Picks will give you $50 instantly when you play your first $5 lineup. You don't need to win your lineup to receive the $50 bonus. It's guaranteed. All you have to do is play a $5 lineup on Prize Picks and you'll get $50 instantly. Now, let's see my winning picks. Number 1 on the list, Aaron Rodgers going up against the San Francisco 49ers defense. More or less than 235.5 passing yards. Do you see who this is? Do you see who I'm talking about here? Do you remember what I said about him? He's a bad man. That brother, as long as he's healthy, he gonna do his thing. Now, I know there have been plenty of times in the past over the last couple of years in Green Bay before he got hurt as a New York Jet last season, where he had some games where he was throwing under 235 yards. Wasn't really looking to pass the ball or whatever. That's gonna change now, okay? He didn't have Gary Wilson there. He got him here in New York in a Jets uniform, okay? He going up against San Francisco. I know it's a lot to ask, but he's a bad man. I'm going with more than 235.5 yards for Aaron Rodgers. Let's take the next list right here. 49ers quarterback Brock Purdy playing the New York Jets defense. More or less than 240.5 passing yards. I'm going to go with more, but for different reasons. See, when you look at Purdy, right? Kyle Shanahan gets the ball out of his hands relatively quickly. He's dipping and dunking to an Ayuk, to a Debo, to a C-Mac, as in Christian McCaffrey, to a George Kittle, to a lesser degree, down the field. We know that the brother can throw the football. He's a precision kind of passer. You look at his numbers, it's right there. But with Kyle Shanahan calling plays, I don't think it's asking a bit too much to ask for this brother to pass for more than 240.5 passing yards, even against the Jets' great defense. I'm going to go with more with Brock Purdy on that as well. Let's go next up. Receivers, 49ers to be exact, Brandon Ayuk, more or less than 49.5 receiving yards. Now, I'm not going to accept this brother. The brother just signed for $30 million a year. He just signed for $30 million a year. If he can't get 49.5 receiving yards, something wrong with that man, even against the Jets defense. I'm going to go with more here as well for Brandon Ayuk, 49.5 yards, more. Last but not least, Garrett Wilson. I brought up his name earlier. More or less than 69.5 receiving yards. I have to go with more. How the hell is Aaron Rodgers going to throw for more than 235.5 yards if Garrett Wilson ain't getting more than 69.5 yards? Of course I'm going to go with more. It makes sense. It's called synergy, ladies and gentlemen. Synergy, all right? You do what you do. The quarterback feeds the receivers. That's how you make big things happen. I'm going with more. So let's go back to the list right here. We got Aaron Rodgers. We got Brock Purdy. We got Brandon Ayuk. And we got Garrett Wilson. More, 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 more. It's Prize Picks. It's how it goes. More is usually the way to go, as in more money in your pocket. Feel me? Feel me? Joining me right now to talk about that story and an abundance of other things that took place in the first full weekend of NFL football. He is a Hall of Famer, class of 2013, over 1,100 receptions, 130 touchdowns in his career. All the man did was catch touchdowns. That's what they always said about him. But he's my boy. We've gone back many, many years. I love this brother. Happy to make him a part of this show every single Monday for the NFL season. The one and only Cris Carter. What's going on, big time? How are you, man? How's everything?
You should have told me about the wardrobe. Now, you know I happen to have a purple jacket or something up in the closet, with you looking so clean today. But I'm looking forward to it, looking forward to the contribution, looking forward to you and I discussing football. We both love the game and any of the other subjects that might come up, social, basketball, or anything else.
Here's the reason I didn't give you a heads up about the wardrobe, see? You know what I'm going to tell you. You know, that's the one thing in the world I got you beat on all the time. I'm always beating you with the wardrobe. So I didn't feel the need to really prep you for this. You understand? Because I knew I was going to be a little bit dapper as always. But listen, man, before we get into some football talk, let's get to the serious matter at hand and get that out of the way as it pertains to Tyreek Hill. You saw the news yesterday. You saw what transpired. You saw the video. What were your thoughts when you were seeing all of that, CC?
Well, definitely a very troubling situation. One thing that we have to realize as professional athletes, entertainers, that on the way to get to our job, there's a lot of people that are doing their job. Now, I'm going to say that again. On the way to doing our job, there's a lot of people that are doing their job. And I've been a resident of South Florida. You know, you got a crib down here in South Florida. So seeing people with money and fancy cars, that's not a big deal. But these are life-threatening situations, and you don't expect to ever see an NFL player detained, let alone being handcuffed, being face down. Steve, the heat index was 100 degrees yesterday. Now, the asphalt, when they put him down there and put his face down there and the guy put his knee in his back and everything, I mean, just given all the things that we have seen video recordings the last 5 years. Now, is Tyreek Hill getting ready to be another accident like that? Now, I got a great deal of respect for law enforcement here in South Florida, but obviously there was a miscommunication that we end up getting an NFL star face down outside of his stadium, outside of his work complex, several of his teammates watching, and another one of his teammates was handcuffed.
Calais Campbell,
who had never played a game with Tyreek Hill, but had seen that and was disturbed enough that I'm not going to leave him right here. Very disturbing situation. And you know that he couldn't have done too much wrong with NFL investigating because they wouldn't have had him on the field. So now to see him get his composure, to have the contribution in the game the way he did later in the game, man, that's very, very difficult. Not a lot of humans can able to do that, be face down, handcuffed, and then be the star of a football game a couple hours later.
No question about 130 receiving yards, an 80-yard touchdown catch that pulled the game within 17-14 after they were trailing 17-7. Major props to the cheetah himself, Tyreek Hill. The thing that really resonated with me was a couple of things. Number one, you had him on the ground, and I remember when Scotty Scheffler got arrested, we saw him being pulled away. He was detained, ultimately arrested. He was in handcuffs. We didn't see him face down on the ground. You've been living in Florida for over 30 years, if I remember correctly, so you know a thing or two about how they do business down there, law enforcement and beyond. And I'm of the mindset that, okay, who knows what was said, who knows what would happen. You didn't have him in handcuffs, you wanted to get him in handcuffs. But then he stood up. And then you saw him surrounded by 3 officers. And still another officer comes around the back and forcibly gets him to sit down again. And I'm like, He's already in handcuffs. He's no threat. Why are you doing something like that? And to me, that made me so angry because, once again, it contributes to thoughts of dehumanization of the black man and particularly the black athlete when it comes to stuff like that. That was my impression. What do you say to that?
I'm more concerned not with the athletes because we have visible platform. We have ways to be able to combat this, but I'm concerned about my aunt, my uncle, my niece, my nephew, my brother, my sister. I mean, people I know, brother in California, brother in New York. I mean, this is just how we have been treated for years. And now even our most prominent people are still, you know, their fame is, it doesn't make you absent of not facing this type of brutality. And I know a lot of police departments have cleaned up their act and they still need to continue doing work on that. As you can see, one of the officers, the aggressive officer, he was already suspended immediately. So they saw something wrong with his conduct. And I'm glad that it was able to be resolved in a non-harmful way. And I'm glad that the players were safe.
Got you. Talking to the one and only Cris Carter right here on the Stephen A. Smith Show. Let's get to some stuff that took place. I wouldn't say on the field, but indirectly it is, because when you're getting paid, you know, for $60 million a year, you sign a $240 million contract. You become the highest paid player in the history of the National Football League. That's got something to do, obviously, with what takes place on the field. Dak Prescott, star quarterback for the Dallas Cowboys. He's got that contract. How'd you feel about it?
I felt great about it. I just wish Jerry Jones would have dropped you a little dime last week when you was talking to him, because the deal was already done then. There is no way that they don't have these parameters already in place when you know you're going to Cleveland. You know Deshaun Watson is part of the conversation because you're trying to get one more dollar than his $230 million that he had guaranteed. So Jerry wanted to control the news cycle. He believes he's got a good team, and they will eventually get Michael Parsons signed. But this is about Jerry rewarding one of his great players. And this is what he's always done. He rewarded Michael, he rewarded Troy. He was a little slow on Emmett, but if you look at Jerry, Jerry loves his players and he will pay him.
Well, see, you and I we've butted heads on this particular issue for years, so we're going to put it out on Front Street in front of everybody. First of all, Jerry Jones did tell me, he just asked me not to say anything because it wasn't finalized, and he didn't want anything to get in the way. But I knew that they were close. I knew they were going to have Dak Prescott signed before opening day on that Sunday. But you say he deserves it. Listen, he does. I'm not fretting the fact that he got his money, he deserves it based on his regular season work. But CC, the man has not produced in the postseason. And you never bring that up the way I do anyway. You never do that. And I'm like, he got 2 playoff victories in 8 years, man. $60 million, $60 million, CC. Come on, man.
If you look at the top 10 quarterbacks, only a handful of them have had playoff success. We know Patrick Mahomes. Patrick Mahomes only got beaten by a couple people, one being Joe Burrow. Joe Burrow's been to 1 Super Bowl. We know my man in Buffalo. People called him this offseason the most overrated player in the NFL. Now, I don't think so. But what makes all these other players outside Patrick Mahomes deserve their $50 million? With Trevor Lawrence, what has he done since Clemson? Has he been so clutch? Yeah, he won a playoff game, but that is not the pure measure of a quarterback playing today. Tua, what has he done? So now you're going to move the marker because it's Dak Prescott and the Dallas Cowboys? No. Dak Prescott is a better quarterback and has proven himself more than those other guys have. And it was his turn. He waited. He played it right. He had the ultimate leverage, couldn't be franchised, couldn't be traded. So you had to pay him. And Jerry knew that he had to keep the quarterback. So you had the perfect storm for this record-breaking contract.
See, I get where you're coming from. I'm looking at a 1-3 career record on home playoff games, 2-5 in playoff games. I think only Kirk Cousins is worse, but I'm going to let it go. I'm going to let it go because, damn it, I guess what I'm saying is the $60 million. Had he gotten the 55 that Joe Burrow, Jordan Love, Trevor Lawrence had gotten, I wouldn't have said a word. It's the $60 million, highest paid in NFL history, and I'm like, damn, he can't even get to an NFC Championship game. But I digress. I want to get into Deshaun Watson and the Cleveland Browns because I didn't expect them to get their ass kicked the way that they did yesterday. Matter of fact, I expected them to win, but they lost, and they lost convincingly so. Was that a product of the Cowboys and how good the Cowboys are, or is it indications of how bad we should expect the Cleveland Browns to be because their quarterback ain't what he used to be from his days in Houston. Your thoughts?
Well, your last statement, the quarterback is not the quarterback that we saw in Houston. That's 100% clear and accurate. Now, I'm glad we weren't doing the show yesterday because yesterday I probably would have cut him. I was distraught. I have not seen a player that has dominated in college and had 4 dominant seasons in the NFL at the quarterback position. This is not Carson Wentz. North Dakota State have a good, 12 games in Philadelphia. No, this dude, Dabo Swinney called him the next Michael Jordan.
Right. This
dude had charisma. This dude had confidence. This dude had elite leadership skills. Man, 5 or 6 teams, remember Miami was tampering with him. A couple other teams were tampering to try to trade for him. I just have not seen a guy that has that type of ability lose his confidence, lose his mojo, and it's affected his throwing ability. There were several easy throws. I'm talking about college throws that he struggled with in yesterday's game. So not only have the injuries taken its toll on him mentally, I believe his throwing motion is a little bit different. I heard your boy Dan Orlowski talking about him, but they just wouldn't say it. He is not a good quarterback right now. Now, I would not go to Jameis Winston, who was the backup there in Cleveland. But if I'm the head coach, if I'm the general manager in Cleveland, if I'm the owner, I'm getting ready to have a real conversation because the more you keep him out there, the more you have to answer to a playoff caliber defense and special team that they might not be able to get there because of one player. And you can't let one player hold back an organization.
I'm looking at the fact that they were missing two starting offensive linemen. They certainly don't have Nick Chubb, who's out for the first 4 games due to his knee injury. But I'm also looking at this, CC. Deshaun Watson, NFL ranks among 45 quarterbacks with 300-plus pass attempts over the last 2 seasons. He ranks 41st in completion percentage. There are only 32 teams in the NFL. Only 32 starters. He ranks 41st in completion percentage, 36th in yards per attempt, 37th in passer ratings. It's one of those situations, man, where he stepped away from the game, self-inflicted wounds in terms of his behavior off the field that we don't need to get into. But I cannot believe how much he has slid. I've got people looking at his offensive coordinator saying, Ken Dorsey, new system, he got to adapt to that. Maybe, Stefanski should take over the play calling. That's not what I'm seeing. I'm seeing a brother that don't have the swag, the confidence, the moxie that he once had. And if I'm seeing that, what are the players? What are his teammates seeing?
It's a terrifying thing because with all that guaranteed money, if I'm in the locker room, if I'm Amari Cooper, or if I'm the tight end, or if I'm Chubb, they don't have long-term guaranteed money like that. So I'm more likely to keep my mouth shut because this dude got guaranteed money no matter if he play or not. So I don't think you're going to ever get the truth out of Cleveland unless you talk to Myles Garrett or something like that. And he decides that he gets frustrated and he lets the cat out the bag. But that's the way NFL locker rooms are. They will hide this information. But this is a playoff caliber team. We saw Joe Flacco. He wasn't bagging groceries, but he was sitting at the crib. He came off the sofa and was slinging it and got this team into the playoffs. And Deshaun is just a shell of himself. When Joe Flacco is better than you off the couch, you need to start looking at things a little bit differently.
CC, I want to transition because I was thinking about that, and obviously that game in Cleveland, and you're in the AFC North. We saw Pittsburgh win yesterday afternoon rather. We saw Baltimore lose, but still play a thrilling game against the reigning defending 2-time Super Bowl champion Kansas City Chiefs. We saw Cincinnati lose a game to New England yesterday, which I was happy about, by the way, because if you're going to hesitate to pay Jamar Chase and think they ain't going to have an effect on the team, then you got your comeuppance. That's how I look at Cincinnati. But getting into Pittsburgh, Justin Fields and the Steelers won, but 18-10, 6 field goals. I'm not thoroughly impressed. My attitude is I don't know if I should be happy about what I saw from the Pittsburgh Steelers. I don't even know if they got a quarterback right now because you know what they say. If you got 2 quarterbacks, you got 0. What are your thoughts about what you saw from the Steelers?
It would be different if we were winning a late divisional game, November and December, and the Pittsburgh Steelers beat Baltimore, they beat Cleveland, they beat Cincinnati by the same way, their quarterback, 17 completions, only 150 yards, gives us another 50 yards rushing. Guess what? I'm clapping my hands, say, Pittsburgh, they can win ugly. They can do that. But to try to do this over the course of 17 games, now, I'm a Justin Fields fan. I'm a Buckeye. He was not a good passer at Ohio State. He has an unorthodox delivery. From the time he decides to throw the football, that motion right there, when he takes that left hand off the football, he has one of the longest wind-ups in the NFL. So from the time he recognizes to throw it, that ball is on an arc, and it takes forever for him to get it there. We saw yesterday a couple throws into the dirt. You're always going to have a few throws like that. So if the Pittsburgh Steelers want to have a margin of error of, then yeah, you can play with Justin Fields, but he is not an accomplished passer of the football. He doesn't have elite anticipation. He's never had it. He's a young player. He might get some of that. Yes, he's got a strong arm, but Russell Wilson, what has he done? Last year in Denver, what has he done that he doesn't deserve to start? He's been banged up through training camp. But to me, with him he outplayed Justin to get the starting job. He hasn't done anything negative that would make him lose the job. So we have more margin if we put Russ into the lineup because our passing game, intermediate and short passing, will be better. Now, Justin Fields does have a nice deep ball, so I'm not going to say that Russ is that much better. They're both very effective throwing the deep ball. But more margin of error for the Pittsburgh Steelers with Russ as your quarterback than with Fields as your quarterback.
What about the notion that putting Russell Wilson in there, if for some reason he struggles, how do you go back to Justin Fields after stripping him of his confidence by taking him out in favor of Russell Wilson? What do you say to that?
Well, bro, let me tell you something about confidence. If you get benched and you lose your confidence, guess what? You have some false confidence. You ain't have no confidence anyway. All right? So all these guys, all these studio gangsters, they think they tough and everything. Coach say one thing to them, they crying. Like, you got yourself in this situation. The Chicago Bears gave you their franchise. You didn't do anything with it. So now you have a one-year deal after a 6-round trade with the Pittsburgh Steelers. Man, this is pro football. You have a Hall of Famer in front of you. Man, he better not complain too loud. All right? That's why there wasn't a lot of takers for him in the offseason. He could be the answer in the future. But I'm talking about today. There are more variables. There are more ways to win a football game with Russ as my guy than Justin Fields.
Let me transition to the Los Angeles Rams and the Detroit Lions playing last night. That was a thriller. Puka Nacua got hurt. I hope he's all right. Don't know his status at this particular moment in time. We'll find out more. But I looked at the Los Angeles Rams with Stafford, with Cooper Kupp, with some of the weapons that they have, even without Aaron Donald, who's now retired. The Rams can make some noise, but the Detroit Lions are not a team to be ignored. What did you see from them? What are your thoughts about them moving ahead in this season?
Well, first of all, these two teams are two of the better coached teams in the NFL. I mean, this was a hard-hitting game, and I'm a huge fan of the Detroit Lions. Jared Goff, what he did coming from L.A., reimagining his career there, the confidence they have bestowed in, the weapons they have. I'm concerned because if they don't get great outside play like they got last night, they can have a little hard time. Their defense is much improved. I love the physicality of it. Man, Sean McVay, he's one of the best coaches in the league. Matthew Stafford, I don't know why he would try to retire. That was a masterpiece. Thrown for over 300 yards last night without one of his top targets. Truly, truly a quality football game, especially with being the first game of the season, seeing little action in the preseason. That's a high quality, the way that game was played at, and a lot of that's because of the way those coaches run their organization.
With that being said, though, I'm looking at tonight's Monday Night Football game coming up between the San Francisco 49ers and the New York Jets. And all I think about when I think about San Francisco, I think about a team that's been in the conference championship game 4 times in the last 5 years, including 2 Super Bowl appearances, haven't kicked in the door and brought home a chip. We get all of that. They don't have the ring. Some would argue this is their last stance. They retained Brandon Ayuk. I think he deserved the $30 million. You still got Debo. You still got Kittle. You certainly got C-Mac, Christian McCaffrey, Brock Purdy, Kyle Shanahan calling plays. I'm of the mindset that no matter what I've seen, whether it's from Philadelphia, Green Bay, whether it's from Detroit or whomever, who's going to beat San Francisco when it comes to that NFC with them returning all 11 starters on the offensive side of the ball? That's where I'm at with it. Where are you?
Well, I think that they have proven. Kyle Shanahan, John Lynch, that head coaching general manager combination there is a special one. They have one of the best rosters from 1 to 53 in the National Football League. They have the luxury of still having their quarterback, Purdy, on his first contract. So they can spend all this other money because they don't have a $50 million quarterback yet. So they deserve that. But let's not forget about the team that last year, Detroit. Detroit outplayed them. Detroit could have been in the Super Bowl. So we have to give Detroit, with their changes on defense with Aaron Glenn, you got to give Detroit some respect. Man, let's go back to the city of brotherly love. My Philadelphia Eagles, team that drafted with Barkley, dog. They are a problem.
No question.
They are a problem. Now, I'm concerned about the leadership of the head coach because the first, 6 months, he was doing a lot of quirky things. People thought it was cute. And then last year, when they lost the whole locker room with all that leadership that they have, I had a great concern. And now, no Kelsey, no Fletcher Cox in that locker room. He's going to have to do his best coaching job. But Philadelphia is the real deal. And those 3 teams are the class of the NFC.
I totally agree with you. And this is the Philadelphia Eagles. I'm still worried about the Philadelphia Eagles defense without Hassan Reddick. And bringing up his name, things have still not been resolved between him and the New York Jets, getting back to them who played San Francisco tonight. How much of an effect do you think that'll have on the New York Jets and their aspirations moving forward?
Well, the defensive staff is very smart, but it just gives them one other tool. They have a game finisher when he's in the lineup. I mean, he's guaranteed to get you 10 sacks. That was one thing that they were missing on a great defense. But let's not, mince words here. This is a huge game for Aaron Rodgers. We know what happened last year, the anticipation not playing. Aaron Rodgers grew up in California. And guess who he grew up being a fan of?
49ers.
The San Francisco 49ers. There is no better team besides Green Bay that he would rather come back and play. They end up drafting Alex Smith. He goes on to Green Bay, has that career, ends up with the Jets. And now, look at this. On Monday night, in a comeback, look what's getting ready to happen. Like, you can't make this kind of stuff up. So this is a bigger game than one of our greatest players playing at this stage of his career than just another Monday night game.
Last couple of questions to you. Biggest pleasant surprise of the weekend, week 1, went to who in your mind?
I would have to say Gerard Mayo and the physicality of New England and what they did to Cincinnati. I mean, they came off the bus dropping haymakers. Very, very limited offense, but the way their defense played and their attitude, they felt like they were going to win the whole game. Just watching it, it wasn't an upset in their minds. Just seeing a coach get his first win after that regime with championship DNA, then he comes, takes it over. That was great. That's probably the biggest surprise for me of the weekend.
Biggest disappointment?
Biggest disappointment, man, Deshaun Watson, bro.
Yeah.
Man, we got to do something about that, man. Yeah. We talking about a career. We talking about, man, $230 million guaranteed. And it's not that I want him to succeed just for that, but I don't want these owners, because we're getting close to the NBA, Stephen A.
Right.
This guaranteed money is getting nice.
Yeah.
The people always talking about, oh, y'all ain't the NBA. Oh, no, we're not the NBA, but they set a great precedent. We got a 53-man roster. Now we got people making $60 million. We got receivers making $35 million. We almost like the NBA, Stephen A. So I'm cheering for that concept too. He was the first brother to get his whole contract guaranteed. And now general managers might be a little gun shy because of the overall failure, the lack of return on that huge investment.
Cris Carter, appreciate you, my brother. Looking forward to many more Mondays to come, my man. You go back to doing what you're doing, and I'll see you next week, my man. Thanks a lot.
I appreciate it, bro.
All right, one and only Cris Carter right here, Stephen A. Smith Show over the digital airways of YouTube and, of course, iHeartRadio. Coming up, Tyreek Hill's agent, Mr. Drew Rosenhaus, joins the show to discuss the incident, inside version of the incident. If anybody would know, he would. Drew Rosenhaus up next right here, yours truly, on the Stephen A. Smith Show. Back with more in a minute. Hey! I want to take a second to make sure everybody knows the NFL season has officially started, and I couldn't be more excited. And with the games happening Thursday night, Sunday night, and Monday night, Prize Picks wants to help you cash in on all that big-time action. You see, Prize Picks is a daily fantasy app where you can pick 2 or more of your favorite players, and then you simply select more or less on their projected stats for the game. Pick a player's rushing yards, passing yards, total touchdowns. The list is endless. And the best part is, Prize Picks has something for every sports fan. Choose from the WNBA, MLB, MMA, even golf, for crying out loud. All in the same entry. I make my picks and submit early, all in less than 60 seconds. That's less time than it takes for Travis Kelce to take a pass from Mahomes all the way to the house. And get this, sign up with code SAS and Prize Picks will give you $50 instantly when you play your first $5 lineup. You don't need to win your lineup to receive the $50 bonus. It's guaranteed. All you have to do is play a $5 lineup on Prize Picks and you'll get $50 instantly. Pick more, pick less. Yo, it's that easy. What does the future hold for business? Ask 9 experts and you'll get 10 answers. It's a bull market. It's a bear market. Rates will rise. Rates will fall. Inflation's up. Inflation's down. Can someone invent a crystal ball? Until then, over 38,000 businesses have future-proofed their business with NetSuite by Oracle, the #1 cloud ERP, bringing accounting, financial management, inventory, and HR into one fluid platform. With one unified business management suite, there's one source of truth, giving you the visibility and control you need to make quick decisions. With real-time insights and forecasting, you're peering into the future with actionable data. When you're closing the books in days, not weeks, you're spending less time looking backwards and more time on what's next. Whether your company is earning millions or even hundreds of millions, NetSuite helps you respond to immediate challenges and seize your biggest opportunities. Download the CFO's Guide to AI and Machine Learning for free at netsuite.com/SAS. That's netsuite.com/SAS. You heard me, netsuite.com/SAS. Welcome back to the Stephen A. Smith Show right here over the digital airways of YouTube and, of course, iHeartRadio. My guest has been ranked the #1 agent by Sports Business Journal, having negotiated over $7 billion in NFL and Major League Baseball player contracts. He is the founder of Miami-based Rosenhaus Sports and the man who represents Miami Dolphins wide receiver Tyreek Hill. He is the one and only Drew Rosenhaus right here with me. Drew, how are you, buddy? How's everything, man?
It's been better. You know, yesterday was one of the most frustrating days of my 37 years as an agent. Stephen A., as an agent, you never dream you're going to get a call like I did from my client, John Smith, on the Dolphins, who calls me frantically saying, Drew, you got to get to the stadium right away. The cops are beating on Tyreek. They're choking him. They're hitting him. They have him on the ground in handcuffs. I was like, John, are you kidding me? Is this some kind of joke? How's this possible? And I rushed to the stadium. I immediately called the Dolphins and notified them and their security so they can go help out. And I get there, Tyreek's still in handcuffs. It was just mind-boggling. I spent quite a bit of time talking to Tyreek. He said, Drew, I give you my word. I didn't do anything to deserve that. They apparently stopped him en route to entering the stadium to play the game about 2 hours and maybe 20 minutes before game time. They gave him a ticket for reckless driving, and the video is just it's appalling. This is Tyreek Hill. I mean, any human being shouldn't be treated treated this way for a traffic incident. They put him in handcuffs. They had him on the ground. They had their knee on him. He was just trying to go to work. I mean, he's literally outside the stadium. You can see him in the background there in the video. And what are they doing to him? I mean, he wasn't fighting back, but by no means did he resist. This is completely abusive, unnecessary, scary. It was one of the low points of my career to see a client treated this way at his own stadium, much less.
Now, you said one of your clients, Janu, called you and told you that they were beating him, they were kicking him, what have you. Once you got there and he was still in cuffs, first of all, what did you specifically see once you arrived?
Well, once I got there, the Dolphins head of security, Drew Brooks, was there as well, and they took the cuffs off at approximately the same time that I arrived. At that point, I was just working with Tyreek to just settle him down. He was so upset with the way they had treated him. He was so disturbed that, his family would be exposed to seeing him treated this way. His teammates, Calais Campbell and Jonnu Smith, were both there. The police were giving them a hard time. Both of those players were very upset, very distraught, told me they thought the force was excessive. It's just a sad situation to see an individual, forget that Tyreek's a player, but anybody, just for giving a citation for a moving violation who's clearly not a threat or fighting back, to be treated that way is just mind-boggling. And if I could just say, yeah, Tyreek is obviously driving a sports car. He's obviously black. They were white officers. I mean, it's just really sad in our society to see this type of treatment. I don't know that they know whether he was Tyreek or not, but have some awareness that he's trying to get to the game and go to work.
Drew, let me ask you this question. You've been, obviously, you're a very influential, very powerful agent. You've been in the world of sports for so many years, like you said, 37 years and counting, for crying out loud. I would ask you this. You've also been based down there. You were smart enough to be based down there. There's a no state income tax state down there. You've been smart enough to be down there all of these years. You're obviously a very influential individual. When you showed up, did you say anything specifically to the officers? Did they say anything to you?
I was really focused on Tyreek. I said to the officers involved, what's going on here? And initially they were very rude to me as well. Initially didn't want to let me get to Tyreek. I said, look, I'm Tyreek's agent. I'm a lawyer as well. You're not going to stop me. It was just a shocking scenario to see our client treated in this capacity.
With that being said, where do you go from here? Because I know they say there's an investigation going on, but they did issue a statement saying that they felt Tyreek Hill was uncooperative, but one of the officers has been resigned to desk duty, I guess. Where do you go from here? What's your recourse from this point forward?
Well, I trust Tyreek. He said he wasn't uncooperative, but even if he was, explaining that he was trying to get to the game, trying to get into the stadium, explaining who he was, that doesn't lend itself to put a guy in cuffs and put him on the ground and hit him and put their knee on his back. And Tyreek said they put him in a chokehold at one point. I mean, he wasn't resisting at all. Obviously, the citation was just for reckless driving. It is, where do we go from here? Well, we're going to investigate. We're trying to get the footage from the body cams. Tyreek, what he says is gold as far as I'm concerned with the way he was treated. But we'll document everything. We'll get the evidence. And if it's warranted, we'll take legal action. We want to make sure this doesn't happen anymore. We want to make sure that not only is, the people involved here from the police standpoint that mistreated my client, that they're punished, that they're disciplined for this. And hopefully this sets an example that this type of conduct will not be tolerated, not just towards professional athletes, but anybody that doesn't deserve this. There should be no abuse of police power. Tyreek said to the police, look, I love police officers. One day I would love to be involved with law enforcement, but the way you guys treated me was not right and was out of hand. And he was just so upset, Stephen A. We were trying to settle him down, and obviously he did calm down, and what he did was unprecedented. I've never seen a professional athlete go from being arrested to playing in a game and scoring a touchdown, and a brilliant one as it was. I mean, just you got to give Tyreek a lot of credit. Obviously, he made light of the situation with the celebration with the handcuff gesture, but it was certainly no laughing matter by any means. And I had dinner with Tyreek last night with his family, and they were still trying to process this. And his attorneys are going to take whatever action they can to make sure that these people involved here, these police officers, are held accountable and will not be able to do this again to anyone else under these circumstances. It certainly didn't warrant that type of physical treatment.
Last question to you. How supportive are the Miami Dolphins? Not of him. I know they're supportive of Tyreek Hill, but on you and Tyreek Hill potentially pursuing further action in light of what transpired. What are the Dolphins' position on that?
Well, I thought they couldn't have been any more supportive of Tyreek. They were obviously very upset. In my interactions from the owner, Stephen Ross, to the general manager, Chris Greer, obviously I spent time with them. They reached out to me yesterday and said that I talked to the team president, Tom Garfinkel. He said he was going to do everything within his power to pursue this on behalf of Tyreek. The Dolphins reached out to me and said there was an internal affairs investigation that was taking place, that they were going to help us with that. So I take my hat off to the Dolphins. The NFL Players Association reached out to me. Countless players, coaches, general managers from other teams were really upset seeing the way that Tyreek was treated. There's no place for this in our society. And obviously, I was encouraged to do everything I can to help Tyreek and straighten this situation out for the future. And I will.
Drew Rosenhaus, one of the best in the business ever. Good seeing you, my man. Good. Looking forward to seeing you again in the very, very near future. Take care, Tyreek, and we'll catch up later, all right?
Thanks, Stephen A. Take care.
Take care. One and only Drew Rosenhaus. You heard what he had to say. He gave you all the details right there, okay? Coming up, what happened to Notre Dame? And later, the Country Music Award nominations were announced, and a very big name was snubbed. I'll get into that next. Stay right here. You're watching the Stephen A. Smith Show over the digital airways of YouTube and iHeartRadio. You can listen, you can watch, you can hear. What you can't do is escape. Feel me? Back with more in a minute. Welcome back to Stephen A. Smith Show right here over the digital airwaves of YouTube and, of course, iHeartRadio. I can't wrap the show up today without taking a look at Notre Dame, okay, the Fighting Irish. The Northern Illinois Huskies. I'm going to repeat that. The Northern Illinois, not Illinois, no, the Northern Illinois Huskies upset the Fighting Irish 16-14 in South Bend to earn the biggest win in the program's history. Prior to Saturday's victory, the team was 0-14 all time against top 10 ranked teams. Okay, let me pause for a second here on Notre Dame. You're always on national television. I like the coach, Marcus Freeman. I like him. But let me tell you something right now. You lose to Northern Illinois. That's just embarrassing. That's just embarrassing, okay? I mean, it's one of those losses where, I mean, this ain't Illinois. They ain't the fight in the line now, all right, in the Big Ten or something. This ain't, Northwestern. This ain't something like that. This ain't Wisconsin, something like that. Northern Illinois, really? That alone should have you banned from national television for the rest of the season. Fighting Irish. I mean, come on. And why don't you just call yourself Irish for the rest of the season? The Irish. How did you do that? Notre Dame Irish. Not Fighting Irish, because there was no fight Saturday, okay? Tell you that much. Let me just throw that out the way. Next up, in Lincoln, as in Lincoln, Nebraska, the star quarterback of Colorado versus Nebraska, that game was not Shedeur Sanders, but freshman Dylan Raiola. He passed for 185 yards and a touchdown. Nebraska's defense sacked Shedeur Sanders 5 times. went on to beat up the Colorado Buffaloes 28-10. Deion Sanders, primetime, that's my man. Y'all know this. There were two things he needed to do in the offseason coming into this season. Buffer that offensive line, and he did have 5 new offensive linemen out there, but buffer that offensive line to protect the quarterback, who happens to be his son, and also to have a running game so his son could hand it off instead of dropping that back to pass over 30 times and getting himself beat up. Neither has occurred at Colorado. And a lose like this to Nebraska, one can only imagine what the rest of the season is going to be like. I don't know anything. I don't want to speculate. I don't want to prognosticate to an extreme degree. But here's the bottom line. Colorado's in a world of trouble. They're in a world of trouble. And if things don't improve quick, fast, and in a hurry, all that noise we were hearing emanating out of Boulder, Colorado, about that program, it ain't going to get better. It's only going to get worse. Up at the Big House, Texas quarterback Quinn Ewers threw for 246 yards and 3 touchdowns as the number 3 Texas Longhorns silenced more than 110,000 fans, shutting down the number 9 Michigan Wolverines in a dominating 31-12 victory. Stop right there. What the hell is the Michigan Wolverines doing being ranked in the top 10 for? We all know that's not true. J.J. McCarthy's in the NFL. Jim Harbaugh's in the NFL. This team is a shell of itself. They got no business being ranked in the top 10, which, by the way, won't be the case this week. Michigan didn't look good in the opener. And they damn sure didn't look good this past weekend when they got their asses kicked. They're the reigning defending national champions. But it's time to say it. It's only in name only. This ain't the same team. All them brothers we saw win the national title last year versus Washington, that ain't on that squad now. So it was nice to see Michigan return to relevance. Now we expect them to go back this way. Harbaugh's gone. And with him, it appears, so has the credibility he built over all of these years, which had him dominating even Ohio State over the last 3 years. I just want to let that out there. Let me leave it at that. Now let's get to some tough news for the Chicago Sky and Star rookie Angel Reese, who suffered a season-ending wrist injury Friday against the Sparks. She tweeted this following the breaking news, quote, "What a year. I never would have imagined the last bucket of my rookie season would be a 3, but maybe that was God saying, give them a taste of what they'll be seeing more of in year 2, laugh out loud. Through it all, I've showed that I belong in this league even when no one else believed. All I have ever wanted was to come into the W and make an impact. I can confidently say I have done that and will strive to keep doing so. I'm filled with emotions right now that I have a season-ending injury, but also filled with so much gratitude for what is next. Although this is God's timing and not mine, I'm finally able to give myself a physical and mental break. God gives his hardest battles to his strongest soldiers. You'll still see me being the biggest cheerleader on the sideline, an unrivaled league. See you soon." End quote. Fellow rookie sensation Caitlin Clark was all class when asked about Reese's unfortunate setback. Quote, "It's obviously definitely sad anytime you see anybody go down with an injury, especially people that you came into this league with, whether it was Cam, Brink, whether it was Angel, and especially Angel. You want to see her finish out this year. Obviously, she's had a historic year, and she's done some incredible things." End quote. Reese was named an All-Star and averaged a double-double with 13 and 13 in her rookie year. Her season ends with the Sky clinging to the 8th and final WNBA playoff spot, even though they've been suffering a lengthy losing streak as of late. Let me say this to Angel Reese. Will you stop? Could you stop, please? What the hell you mean nobody thought that you could make it to the league? Who are these people? You were a first-round pick. You won a national championship at LSU, okay? You went deep into the postseason NCAA tournament your last year there. You were a high draft pick in the league. Everybody knew that you could play. We were wondering about what kind of impact you would have immediately, but no one doubted whether or not you belonged in the WNBA. Who are these people? Where's that? Where's this? Where's your evidence? Because I didn't see it. I stand corrected if you show me evidence, but I never saw that. Certainly didn't come from this direction. I'm not saying you were aiming it at me, but at some point in time, the bunker mentality, don't be the typical athlete out there that always leans on the bunker mentality. The world was against me. No, they weren't. No, they weren't. There's millions upon millions of people who are rooting for you. Millions upon millions of people who know you can play. Millions upon millions of people who knew and remember when you were waving your hand in Caitlin Clark's face when you were beating her for the national championship. Everybody remembered then that you belonged in the WNBA and your future was going to be on the pro level. Quick, fast, and in a hurry. Who are these doubters? That's one of the problems. Not all, not some, but enough of the modern day athletes out there. This bunker mentality, the world is always against you. Maybe that's what facilitates your success, and I get that part. But don't act like you don't have any fans. We saw them NIL deals you got. How you get them if nobody wants you to succeed? How you get them if people thought you couldn't play? How you get them if folks thought that you were going to fail? It would never have happened if people didn't believe in you. So let's just pump the brakes on that. And by the way, you're number 2 for the Rookie of the Year. And you deserve it because you're good and you work hard and you bring style and pizzazz and flair and substance to the WNBA. Congratulations. There's far more people rooting for you. We ain't saying ain't some trolls out there. Ain't some no-good bastards out there who want you to fail. We're not saying that. We're just saying they're outnumbered by your fans. And I would know because I'm one of them. Next up, the 2024 CMA Awards have showered Morgan Wallen and Post Malone with multiple nominations, but snubbed Beyonce. Beyonce! Now, Beyonce's Cowboy Carter album made history this year when it spent 4 weeks on top of Billboard's top country albums chart, making her the first black woman to achieve the feat. She also became the first black woman to hit the #1 spot on Billboard's Hot Country Songs chart with Texas Hold'em, which held the top position for 10 weeks. Both her single and album also led Billboard's all-genre Hot 100 and 200 album charts, while 7 other Cowboy Carter tracks hit the top 10 of the Billboard Country chart. The 27-track project featuring Dolly Parton, Willie Nelson, Linda Martell, Miley Cyrus, and Malone drove cultural conversations about black artists reclaiming the genres they started, including country music. Could that be why she wasn't nominated? Because you got some folks associated with country music that don't necessarily want somebody like Beyonce infiltrating the proceedings per se and ultimately getting shine that she deserves. Look at those numbers that I just ran out there. How the hell could she not be nominated with that level of success for her album and her single? How is that possible? Isn't it supposed to be based on merit? So you don't like, you were upset that she performed in 2016. You've been holding that against her ever since. But the fans loved her. They in the audience, they were cheering for her. But on social media and beyond, folks were critical. She ain't some country music star with it. You know what decides what country music is? Country music. There's a difference between R&B and hip hop, jazz, gospel, opera, and country music. You, the people, don't decide that. The genre is the genre. Just because she's Beyonce and she's associated with R&B and she's associated to some degree with hip hop because of Jay-Z does not mean that she did not do a country music song or a country music album. And if the awards were as such, or rather the acclaim were as such, it was on a Billboard chart's top 10, and it had that level of success, how do you justify keeping her off of it with anything that has something to do with merit? You don't. That's our problem. Ladies and gentlemen, grow the hell up. Just because you don't like something, or you don't like someone, or you don't like what they represent, doesn't mean you deny them what they've earned. That's the damn problem in our society. I can despise you as a person. If you're an athlete, you're a coach, you're a general manager, you're an owner or whatever, I could despise you. It gives me no license to take away what you've earned. If you've earned it, you've earned it. And I'm going to give it to you because you've earned it. Beyonce clearly deserved a nomination. The fact that she didn't get recognized is a travesty. In the Country Music Awards, I thought y'all were bigger than that. I really, really did. The fact that you aren't, maybe you don't deserve the audience you receive. Maybe, just maybe, people shouldn't watch. They should pay very little attention. Because it's not about merit, right? It's about whether you like somebody or like what they do. We don't like what y'all just did to Beyonce. Beehive, get at them. Get at them. Get at them. Finally, by the way, it was announced over the weekend that 17-time Grammy Award-winning rapper Kendrick Lamar will headline the Super Bowl 59 halftime show in New Orleans on February 9th. As you may remember, Lamar, who's a Pulitzer Prize winner, was part of the history-making Emmy Award-winning 2022 halftime show in Los Angeles that featured Dr. Dre, Eminem, Mary J. Blige, 50 Cent, and the one and only Snoop Doggy Dogg himself. Since then, the Compton native has stacked a string of hits. His recent beef with rapper Drake produced the hottest song of the summer, Not Like Us, and a star-studded Juneteenth pop-out concert streamed on Amazon Prime. I didn't like touching this subject because I didn't want to say what I wanted to say. Because I love Drake. And Drake's fan base is never, ever going away because he's that dude. But I don't think it's an accident that Kendrick Lamar got the Super Bowl halftime show right now. I don't think that's an accident. That brother's one of the hottest things going right now. He's big time. Make no mistake about it. And by the way, Kendrick Lamar, I always loved seeing you acting in the show Power. You were phenomenal when you acted on that show for a couple of episodes and stuff. But Kendrick Lamar's no joke. And Not Like Us is no joke either. And all I'm going to say is this. I can't imagine him showing up Super Bowl weekend and not performing that song. And if he does perform that song on Super Bowl weekend, it's going to make the Super Bowl a bad weekend for Drake. I don't know. I'm just guessing. But it ain't a hard guess if you listen to Not Like Us. You feel me? Last but not least, Monday Night Football. 49ers Jets. All I care about is that Aaron Rodgers don't get hurt. I want that bad man healthy all season long. Having said that, I don't see the Jets beating the San Francisco 49ers tonight. Returning all 11 starters after losing the Super Bowl, hungry as hell, keeping their team intact, having Christian McCaffrey, C-Mac, Brandon Ayuk, Deebo Samuel, George Kittle, Brock Purdy with Kyle Shanahan calling plays. Jets defense should answer the call, make no mistake about it. Robert Saleh returning to his old stomping grounds. He was the former defensive coordinator in San Francisco. Does not matter. To me, San Francisco is a big-time team. Could the Jets beat them? Sure. Could Aaron Rodgers go berserk? Absolutely. Could he potentially be rusty? That's more than likely, because he didn't play at all last season after getting hurt the fourth play of the season. I got to wait to see what transpires. We shall see. We shall see. But I think it's going to be a good game, but San Francisco pulls away late. I'm going to pick San Francisco to win, 27-21. That's my prediction. San Francisco 49ers over the New York Jets on Monday Night Football. I'll holler at y'all in a couple of days about how right I was. If I'm wrong, I'll apologize. Maybe. Till next time, everybody, this is your boy Stephen A. signing off. Peace and love. Talk to you soon.